Hello and welcome. Today on Relentless Renewal, I'm pleased to welcome Mark Zhou. Mark is the Executive Vice President R&D Operations at NIO. When it comes to building high-performance smart electric vehicles, NIO is at the cutting edge of innovation. Last year, they unveiled their comprehensive NIO Full Stack, which enables them to build cutting-edge electric vehicles with integrated software and hardware across 12 different technology domains. They're continuing to make investments into a full AI stack, helping them in products, services, communities, R&D, and manufacturing. With this approach, they're really driving the efficiency of cloud-based data processing for autonomous driving, as well as for assisted driving. I'm so pleased to have Mark with us on the show today. Hey, Mark, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good to see you again, Dominik.
We worked at McKinsey, both of us, in the beginning of the 2000s, right? And then you were at GM, at Lee, at Cross, and now at NIO. Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and the journey that brought you here?
Right. Thanks, Dominik. I have been spending all my career life mostly in the automotive industry. So I started with General Motors, where General Motors decided to come into China back in 1990s. So I was part of the pilot team, assisting the GM colleagues and SIC colleagues. And we put together this Shanghai General Motors, which is one of the most successful entity of General Motors globally. And then I moved on to a company called Lear. We were in the seating business, component business, automotive. And for a while, I kind of puzzled, what is the right way to run the business. So I had the opportunity to come to the firm, McKinsey, and I had to relearn, how to lead the business, run the business. The good thing that I learned with the firm the best was how to set up targets. How do we define the targets? What are the right things to do? And then, how do we engage people, motivating people, and influencing people, so that we glue everyone together to form a high-performing team. And then with Coros, it's a startup company, automotive. We had a few ex-McKinsey colleagues being part of the pilot teams. And then setting up a startup company, automotive industry, was really, really fascinating. I joined NIO actually 9 years ago. Today actually is my 9th anniversary with NIO. And then we were engaged in, or we are still engaged in the smart electrical vehicle business. And there are lots of new ideas, there are lots of new technologies, and creating new features, new experiences, and new user values for the consumers. And that was sort of a very different industry, even though I've been with the automotive industry almost all my life. This is a brand new area. We get to see different players. We get to see different technologies. And it's a great opportunity. Again, having the chance to work with Microsoft, not on the Office, but on Azure, on OpenAI, these fascinating topics. So that's sort of my life with the automotive industry, and we're coming to a different stage. And now, actually, for automotive, when it started in Germany, and it was the tip of the technology. And now the automotive industry come back with the strengths of the technology again, and we're hoping that we can deliver new products, new features, new values for the consumers.
I had the privilege to look at some of your products, and indeed they're very innovative. There's a lot of new technology and features as you're describing it. For the ones that haven't had exposure to your products yet, can you talk a bit about NIO and what makes your car special?
I think NIO started with a very interesting philosophy. Why do we have a chance to be a player in this industry, automotive? So we start to think from the user perspective. Why the consumers are willing to spend $60,000 or $70,000 to buy a car from a company that never existed. What are the few things that we can delight the users and provide a different value? So that was back in 2015 when we had our first sort of product committee meeting and defining, what is the value for the consumers. We believe user value is the key. And so the user value starts from the styling design. We then search for where is the best location for talents that are really great with the automotive design and styling. And actually we selected Munich. And our office is not far away from where you are, Dominik. So if you look at the car buyers, the first thing I actually look at is how does the car look inside and outside. So our design language are fairly simple. We have only 4 words. The first is pure, the second one is human, and the third one is progressive, and the last one is sophisticated. So that fits most of our targeted users' taste. It's nothing like fancy, but it's very well coordinated. And when you look at it, you will just like it for the target users. So that's just one thing. And the second thing is we are an electrical vehicle company. So electrical vehicle is not really something new. General Motors had developed the electrical vehicle way back. But the real issue is not the technology alone. It's just like the battery is bloody expensive. So if the battery is expensive and it's very difficult to refill the battery because you then rely on infrastructure, and then there is not enough infrastructure. So you're kind of in a dead circle that the battery is expensive and then charging is difficult. Then you don't create economy of scale, so the battery becomes more expensive. So the first thing we saw, well, what can we do to resolve the battery energy refill? So we started with our power swap stations. So you can swap the battery in the car, in and out, in 3 minutes. And as of today, we have like 2,500 battery swap stations all around China, which is a big country, but we cover most of the highways and we cover the cities. So driving electrical vehicle for range anxiety is no longer a problem for our consumers. Then we say, well, this probably is still not good enough because you can still drive ICE vehicles. You can compete with the gas stations. So what else can we do to provide features and for our users? Now, luckily enough, that's also the time the computer science technology for those applications become matured. Not really matured, so matured, but the application can be really creating something. So we started with working with the tech companies like NVIDIA, like Qualcomm, now of course also with Microsoft, to bring the what we call digital technology, smart technologies into the car. So we can talk to what we call Nomi. It's basically a companion in the car. So it's you can chat with Nomi, you can talk with Nomi, and to operate the car in a much easier way, and also the autonomous drive. And the autonomous drive is not like a driverless vehicle. This is a long shot. But when you're driving on the highway, it can drive by itself. And the driver just needs to sit back the wheels and monitor the progress and look at the road. And the car does many things for you. So it becomes much easier and very relaxing driving this vehicle. And you don't have to, spend so much time and worried, the traffic jam and etc. So we look into those things. I say, okay, this is what we can do. And this we need brand new technologies, which does not exist in the automotive industry in the past. So all this AI technology had a lot to do with the sensing technologies, data technologies, cloud technologies, privacy technologies, large language models, word models, etc., etc. So in the last 9 years, we just build out those building blocks step by step and continuously improving our product and upgrade our product. So one essential feature of any smart devices is you can upgrade it very easily, just like your smartphone, your tablets, your iPad, your Surface. So over the air, after you bought it, it can still grow. It can still acquire new features, new functions. So those are very, very attractive to the consumers. And it seems our initial strategy really works. And that's how we doing it, and we are very, very enjoying the journey.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one can tell, talking to you and seeing the products. And what also really impressed me when we were meeting in Redmond is that you're not just innovating the actual car, the product, but you're also innovating the way you develop the product, right? And you talked about the pace at which you're driving the innovation and the very short time frames in which you're basically bringing new products to market. Can you talk about what you're doing there, and how you accomplish that speed and pace?
Yes. I think first thing is always, what is the target? What do you want to achieve? There's so many different technologies you can explore. There's so many partners you can partnership with. And, do you do this, what do you do in-house, and what are the few things that you work with your partnership? They all start from what are the targets? What do you want to achieve? So that's like what I explained a little bit earlier, what are we trying to do? The next thing is, it's always difficult. Smart vehicles, even with the classic automotive industry, you have many, many different technical domain experts who have to work together and to deliver a certain product. And being expert, often, they don't necessarily always share the same view, and they have their own perspectives. So the next question is, how do we get all these experts working together with the same goal? That's where the company's vision and the company's value kicks in. And what is the common goal? What is our commonly appreciated behavior? So when the team when the organization becomes really a team, and things can move much, much faster. And the third thing is, I think it's all about the architecture, or how do you put the different building blocks together? How do you decouple the technology so you can develop the technologies in a parallel way? And when you put everything back together, it's a nice product. So we spend a lot of efforts in designing the architecture from the right beginning, and to make sure, it's upgradable, and you develop a product, it can be much faster. And then I think it's also important then we go back and look into the nature of the business or the nature of the technology. Which team has to work together with team? For example, one thing that we did is we really broke down the wall between the engineering and the manufacturing. Not often when you build testing vehicles, it's done by the engineering folks. It's not manufacturing. But then we looked at, why does it have to be done by engineering? Why can we not do it with the manufacturing folks, where during the processes, they can already build up the manufacturing maturity level? So things can be done much faster. And I think also it's the leverage of the technology. We do a lot of things through simulations, even for the mechanical engineering. And we build up our own data pipeline with a highly automated capability, like mapping. We can collect data, and we can label the data, and we build up our own data production line. And also we work with Azure, and there are a lot of technology inside Microsoft, or did, not necessarily for automotive industry, but the nature of the business is the same. Then we can work with companies like Microsoft to speed up the realization of those technologies. So those are the few things that we look into, and we look into the bottlenecks, the things that everybody feels, damn, it's difficult. Wow, but if you don't do something difficult, you don't create outstanding achievements. So that's, I think that's a few things that we did in the past years, and we enjoyed the payback for what we have done.
It really resonates what you are describing on the culture side, how you're collaborating and the collaboration between engineering and manufacturing. That's certainly something we see, both for us at Microsoft as well as our customers and partners, that, in large organizations, getting the power of the organization like on the road is non-trivial. The other piece you touched on a couple of times is, you started talking about the technology and that you've taken a full stack approach, right? And you've vertically integrated quite a bit, right? And also, again, in that short amount of time. What drove that decision making to pursue that path, and like what are the things you're doing and how and why?
Right. Actually, it's not that much of a mystery. We did a lot of things vertically because we couldn't find partners who can deliver what we want. We are one of the few companies build our own electrical drive systems. And that was at the very beginning, we didn't want to invest capex in building up factory because our philosophy is more on the sales, marketing, and engineering technology design. But what we were looking for are very powerful, high-performance electrical drive system, and they just can't find it in the market because there's no other OEM customers are looking for the same technology. So we said, well, is this important? Is this a critical feature we want to build up our brand on? So, okay, if we can find a partner, let's do it in our own. Then we actually work with many different supply chain partners. But for the digital technology, here comes another problem. In the past, it's all individual component driven based on MCUs because the car itself is simple. The car doesn't really have a brain, right? So everything is operated by human. So in the industry, everybody is based on a component, and the software is a subset of a component hardware. But for the smart technology, smart electrical vehicles, you do have to have a brain because the car decides many things based on what the car sensed from the outside environment and decide to do certain things that without needing the human interfering. Now, the ECU concept no longer works. And you need the operating system, you need the different sensing technologies, you need the different connectivity technologies and different algorithms. But we couldn't find anyone who can do this in a holistic, organic way. So again, we don't have a choice. And then we say, no, let's do it on our own because there's no firm answer. What is right, what is wrong? There's so many different uncertainties. And on top of that, large companies, tech companies like Microsoft, you guys continuously bring something new. ChatGPT, for example, OpenAI, Azure is upgrading all the time. And then, the chipset technology, the sensing technology. The next question, how can you move fast? Because we don't have the legacy and we don't have a lot of advantages that the large successful companies has already built. So one of the key success factors for NIO is fast. We have to be fast, and we have to be the early adopters of the emerging technologies that are becoming available, and you can apply into the car. So then we realized, then we need to build what we call Sky OS, which is a vehicle level operating system where you have all the software building blocks sitting on top. And then, we can try our best to decouple those different the software's packages so you can start to do things in parallel. And once we realize there's something we need to do, then we just go ahead and do it. And also, we, from the operational standpoint, we look into, if you can do things in parallel, it's always faster than you can do things. You have to do things in sequential. And if you can control the quality of each different stage, then the end success rate is much higher, so you can create efficiency. We couldn't do that because the technology was not available. Now, if we can penetrate the technology barrier, then we can move faster. And then we build up our own competitive advantage because it's a systemic boundary. It's a systemic competitive advantage. It's not easy to build it up for any competitors unless they do the same way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so on the AI piece, I mean, that's something we're familiar with, right? Because you also work with our technology. You're one of our most advanced users of our Azure OpenAI service. Can you expand a bit on what you're doing there?
So what we do, for example, is Microsoft Azure. We started with the AI system that Microsoft is able to offer in Europe, and we are the first one launching the GPT-like technology in the car, fully leveraging Microsoft's capability. So, our approach is very different from the other car makers. We don't have somebody in between being the integrator, so to speak. So we work directly with the Microsoft scientists and engineers and experts, and we define again from the user perspective. What are the features? What are the few features are most frequently used by the users? And if we can improve, you can generate much better user satisfaction. Then, we come back to Microsoft. You have different building blocks, and the two companies engineer work together hand in hand, and to realize those features and functionality. Then, because our system, let's say we have this operating system that the normal vehicle doesn't, so we can plug and play much easier because it's all decoupled. Like in different regions, in different countries, we do use different technologies behind. In China, the voice technology is more self-developed, working with different set of partnership. In Europe, we can easily adapt to Microsoft's technologies. And that's how, where other companies are more showing this as a demo, and we already brought it into the market last Friday.
I mean, clearly you've demonstrated a lot of foresight into, where the puck is headed. What is looking forward from today? What do you think is what does the future hold for the auto industry?
I think this is just the starting point of the smart electrical vehicle or any smart vehicles. It's just a starting point. There are a lot of new technologies emerging, and every company play around with different sets of standards. It's by far not yet standardized. But in the longer run, the right things are the right things. Everybody will come to the end saying, okay, this is the best way to make it happen. At the moment, it's still a lot of exploration. It's still a lot of early adoption of the technologies. It's hard to predict what is going to happen in the future. For example, the large language model. How is this going to change the user behavior? And it's like when you develop the Windows, right? And the Office suite. It's basically entirely changed the way of running business. And when we have now the Microsoft Copilot, a lot of productivity improvement. So the same thing will happen, I believe, in the automotive industry. So it's just a matter of who can go, who is able to define the right targets and try the best to do the right things in the first time. But we have to accept, because it's the uncertainty, you can't always do things the first time right. And then the next thing is how can you change, and how quickly can you change? And then how quickly can you engage the technology providers, the leading companies, forming up sort of alliance. It's not like the traditional supply and the customer relationship. which were in the automotive industry, was very transactional. But can we create something together? So I think in the longer run, nobody can predict exactly how is the AI technology is going to change the world and going to change the user experience of using a car, and eventually how is it going to change the automotive industry. But if we take every step in the right way and try the best, one day maybe the car is really a totally different animal. It's no longer just a transportation tool taking people from point A to point B, or it's a super gigantic, super expensive toy to enjoy the ride, the driving dynamics. It will become something different. Maybe it's just a data center by itself with all the computing powers in the car and the connectivities in the car. So there's so many things we can imagine. But meantime, let's make, our philosophy is we look into the future, we look into the sky, and then let's make sure we put our feet on the ground. And this is actually the essence of the new logo. We continuously look into the future, but let's make sure we do the right things for the time being.
I love that philosophy and outlook, and how you talked about creating something together. In that spirit, Mark, thanks so much for spending the time with us today, and I'm looking forward to creating more things together.
Yes, Dominik. It's a very pleasant journey working with the team.
Thanks so much, Mark. Have a great day.
Thank you. You have a good day.